They say there's a sound in the desert, a sound most people will never hear. But for the ones who do, it becomes a curse. It steals their sleep. It rattles their skulls. It whispers from nowhere and everywhere. This is the mystery of the Taos Hum. Welcome to Mystery Trails. Around here, we walk the fine line between fact and the unknown, where science ends and nightmare begins. If strange mysteries, unsolved events, and chilling stories are your kind of thing, take a moment to subscribe and join us. You don't want to miss the trails we've yet to follow. The first time the world heard about it in any official sense was in the early 1990s. Newspapers wrote cautious headlines. Scientists gave clipped statements. But by then, the sound was already old. Folks who lived in the desert swore it had been with them for years, long before anyone bothered to measure it. They spoke of a presence more than a noise. For some, it seemed harmless, like the low, steady rumble of a diesel engine idling somewhere just beyond the horizon, never approaching, never fading. But others said it felt alive, like a hidden pulse rising through the earth itself. The vibration crawled up from the ground, slipped through the soles of their shoes, and settled deep in their bones. Night was the worst of it. When the wind died down and the desert stretched quiet beneath the stars, the hum would creep into the silence. People lying in their beds described their skulls filling with a strange pressure, as if unseen bees had swarmed behind their eyes, as if something was whispering through the marrow of their heads. One man recalled it with a shiver. He said it was as if a great lung were buried beneath his pillow, exhaling in slow, heavy breaths. Even when he drifted into sleep, the sound followed him down into his dreams, breathing right alongside him. The desert is vast, but in those moments it felt smaller, like the earth itself was leaning in close, humming its secret into anyone unlucky enough to listen. In Taos, only a small handful, barely 2% of the town, ever admitted they could hear it. Yet for that small circle of people, the hum became a private torment. It wasn't just a sound to them, it was an invader. Night after night, they lay in their beds staring at the dark, the low vibration gnawing at their skulls. Some spoke of the hours passing with no rest at all, as though the hum drilled through the silence and pinned them awake. There were stories of nosebleeds that stained the sheets crimson before dawn, of a pressure so sharp behind the eyes it felt as though the skull itself might crack. For others, the torment settled deeper. They lived with constant nausea, with migraines that arrived like storms, with a weight pressing against their temples until they thought they might scream. One woman whispered a confession that chilled her neighbors. She said the sound had nearly pushed her to the edge of suicide. To her, it wasn't coming from the outside world. It lived inside her, filling her bones, her blood, her very thoughts. "It's inside me," she murmured, "and I can't make it stop." Even those who fled Taos, hoping for relief, discovered no true escape. The hum clung to them, slipping past miles and years, as if something had been planted within their ears, or buried deeper still in the quiet chambers of their souls. By 1993, the voices of the suffering grew too loud to ignore. Letters piled high, public meetings grew heated, and the strange torment of Taos had become a matter so persistent that Congress itself demanded answers. An investigation was ordered, and the desert town braced for a reckoning. Teams of scientists descended on the valley, men and women from Los Alamos National Laboratory, the United States Air Force, and some of the most respected universities in the country. They came armed with technology sharp enough to hear the faint buzz of a mosquito's wings and instruments delicate enough to catch the tremor of a distant earthquake. Trucks full of gear rolled into Taos like a caravan of promise. They set up in kitchens and living rooms, in quiet stretches of desert, in fields where the wind barely stirred the grass. Microphones stretched out across the land, vibration meters were driven deep into the soil, and sound mapping devices swept the valley in careful arcs. They tested the homes where the afflicted swore the hum never ceased. They tested the earth beneath their feet. They tested the very air itself, searching for some hidden frequency riding on the wind. And yet, nothing. Not a whisper. Not the faintest trace of sound beyond what nature always offered. No pulse in the ground, no secret vibration humming through the atmosphere. Nothing to explain the cries of those who insisted their nights were haunted by it. The scientists packed up their instruments, their notebooks filled with empty readings, and left the valley shaking their heads. Officially, the case was closed. But for the people of Taos, nothing had ended. The hum remained, relentless, invisible, and unanswered. Now, if this mystery's got you hooked, go on and like, share, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next trail. When the experts left empty-handed, explanations began to bloom in the silence, multiplying like shadows at dusk. In diners and back porches, in whispers passed between neighbors, theories took root. Some insisted the answer lay beneath their feet, that hidden tunnels or forgotten mines were trembling in secret, sending vibrations crawling through the valley like a buried heartbeat. Others swore it came from the power lines stretched across the desert sky, humming in strange harmonies too low for machines to catch. And still others pointed their fingers higher, to the military, whose reach stretched into every desert, whose experiments with low-frequency sound and silent weapons were whispered about but never confirmed. Perhaps, they said, Taos had been chosen as a test ground, the townsfolk unwilling participants in some unseen war of the future. But as the weeks wore on, darker notions took hold. A few spoke of lights that flickered at the edge of the clouds, of craft that never seemed to land, and they claimed the hum was no earthly vibration at all but the drone of an engine not built by human hands, circling just out of sight. Some turned their eyes back to the land itself, believing the earth was alive, groaning in its sleep, restless with warnings that no one yet understood. And then came the whispers that chilled even the skeptics, that the hum was not mechanical, not natural, but spiritual, a voice low and unrelenting, rising from beneath the world we know, a message from the dead, or perhaps a chorus from some underworld realm, seeping through unseen cracks and filling the nights of Taos with a sound that could not be silenced. The unease refused to stay bound within the mesas of New Mexico. Soon the same stories began to surface in places oceans apart. Bristol, England, where sleepless residents swore they could hear the earth itself moaning beneath them. Larg, Scotland, where fishermen spoke of nights ruined by a vibration that clung to their bones. Kokomo, Indiana, Windsor, Ontario, town after town, each with the same strange affliction. The pattern was always the same, a low, endless vibration, a soundless weight pressing into the skull. Only a chosen few ever heard it, and yet their torment was undeniable. Scientists came, as they had in Taos, setting up their instruments and leaving just as quickly when the reading showed nothing but silence. And still, the afflicted suffered. One man in England said he felt it gnawing at his teeth, as though they rattled loose in his gums each time the hum returned. A woman in Canada claimed her entire house seemed to breathe with it, the walls expanding and contracting like lungs, as if the structure itself had been possessed by something vast and unseen. It was no longer a curiosity tied to a single desert town. It was spreading, carrying its dread across continents, not local, not random, a presence vast enough to be global, yet still intimate enough to rattle a single skull in the dark of night. The Taos Hum has never given up its secret. No scientist has found its source, no doctor has offered a cure, and no victim has ever truly escaped it. For those who hear it, the sound is endless, an invisible chain that stretches through their nights and burrows into their days. It steals their rest, wears down their nerves, and gnaws at the fragile edges of their sanity. Some describe it as though it crawls into their very bones, making their own bodies feel like part of the machinery of the sound itself. Theories still swirl like dust in the desert wind. Perhaps it is man-made, the echo of hidden experiments humming across the land. Perhaps it is natural, the earth's own voice rising from a place too deep to be measured. Or perhaps it is neither, but something older and stranger, some signal bleeding into our world, meant for ears that were never supposed to hear it. And so the mystery endures. The hum is out there, rolling endlessly through valleys, seeping through walls, rattling the teeth of the chosen few who cannot escape its touch. And if you listen closely tonight, when the wind dies and the silence deepens, you may just feel it too, pressing against your chest, whispering into your skull, reminding you that some sounds are not meant to be heard. So, what do you think? Is the Taos Hum simply a puzzle for science to solve? Some quirk of the earth that we've yet to understand? Or is it something more? A hidden presence moving beneath the ground, or perhaps circling high above the clouds, letting only a few unlucky souls hear its voice? Share your theories in the comments. We always love to hear what you believe. And don't forget, here on Mystery Trails, not every haunting shows itself in shadows or lights in the sky. Some hauntings slip into your very senses, twisting the quiet around you. If the sound of this mystery has followed you tonight, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe, so the trail doesn't go cold. Because some mysteries don't just linger in your eyes. They live in your ears. And once you hear them, they never stop.